just going to start out with a few questions, I think. If you would, as we go through the question set, there's several. Raise your hand and leave it raised through the set, okay, as long as you can. Question number 1. Okay, this is like, even if you just use it for anything, okay? Anything. Hopefully we have everyone here. Keep your hands up. Next one. Keep your hand up if this applies to you still. Okay, we lost, 20, 30%. How many of you actually take that and store it and have stored any piece of it in a PIM dam? Okay, we're actually down a lot. Keep them up. Wow, we're down a lot. We're probably to 10% already. How many of you have generated AI copy? This is text that's live somewhere. Okay, keep them up. I guess now some went up, so you didn't store, I guess, in the PIM dam. Okay. Keep them up. How many of you have generated AI images? So now this is not just text, images themselves that are live. See a bunch of pattern hands. If you're patterned, it doesn't count. Put your hand down. Okay. How many of you have a complete listing that is AI generated live on the site, the entire thing? One left. Congratulations. Way to go. All right. This is strange, right? So we're all using AI, but something is missing, right? So this is what we're going to talk about a little bit today is this gap between we can see the power of the thing, we use it, but for some reason we're not making it have real impact yet. And it's not super new. We're a couple years in, and this is probably the thing that has driven me the most crazy is, well, I might refer to it as the wiring of putting it all together to make it so that we can all make use of the technology. The technology clearly works, but why is it we're not getting it all the way across the line? And I don't know if we're talking a few hundred people in here. One person is all the way through, and there were a matter of, we're less than 5% probably that are having any real impact. It's somewhat staggering, and this has been probably the thing at Pattern that has driven me the most crazy because we can feel the power. So all the AI nerds like myself, we're saying, this actually works, but why does it not matter? So this is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. This is a fascinating quote. We tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. And you think about that. I think lots of technologies follow this. And by the way, Sam Altman, I don't know if you saw his interview, what was it, 2 weeks ago or something? He almost word for word quoted this. And you can see some of those quotes that back this up. You start seeing, even the tone of news over the last year has changed to more of a sort of a deflated tone, like, it was cool, but doesn't really matter. Here's just some of the things about AI are black box, and we don't know how they work. And anyone who says they know how they work, largely, they're not being accurate with you. Because there are some things that we just simply don't know how they work, and there are some things we know really well. The training data or gradient descent, backpropagation, which is essentially going back in the network and fixing errors, right? Some of those things we understand quite well how they operate. And then there are, like neural circuits, where we just simply don't, we'll use the network probes, essentially like a brain, and go and we'll try to see, okay, how is it making this decision? We know we can teach it how to play a perfect game of Othello, but we don't know why exactly it was able to do it. So you can probe into each node and you can try to trace it through, but the layers on these nodes are just, they're enormous, and as you've seen, just the number of parameters and the number of tokens. The tokens are the word chunks, the parameters are essentially the number of nodes. This is so fascinating. Everyone argues about all the different models, the transformer model, which is VIT, one of the transformer models is VIT, which would be the GPT, the T in transformer, and then you have the CNN models that would be like a large ResNet, small ResNet, and Coral CNN. You can argue about which one of these models, and people do endlessly. Here's the fascinating thing, though. Trained on the same data set for long enough, look where they end up. So they largely, people argue forever about that small difference. But from an econ perspective, when we're all in our seats, we don't really care. You could pick one and train it on a large enough data set, and it would get pretty interesting. They would largely land in the same place. So the key differentiator almost becomes, at this point, the data. And brands, you have a lot of data. We have a lot of data. Being able to train the models on that data will be more impactful than any of the other things you try to do, or which model you choose, or how you go about it. The data will be king. And not only the data, AI is very good at picking up on which data elements matter the most very quickly. And the rest of the data set matters, but it's small impact. You see on the far right over there, all of the, and this list goes on. I just grabbed 3 of them here, but the accuracy, impact, the beta. So essentially the accuracy of your output. The instruction quality, so what you send in, your prompts, which is back to the same thing. What data do you give to the model to provide your output? By far and away matters far more than collaboration, fine-tuning, all of the things that you might do to the model. The data you put into the model will be king. This was a fun one. How many of you are familiar with this little riddle? I'll let you take a second, read it. It's a pretty familiar, model. A farmer, a wolf, a sheep, a sack of grain are on one side. If the farmer leaves them unattended, the wolf will eat the sheep will eat the grain. The boat can only carry one thing, so how do you get them all across the other side of the river? Right? And I'm sure if you spend a little bit of time thinking about this, and this is very common, and by the way, because, if you think natural language processing and the way that AI might tackle this problem, it's going to go and learn from riddles that already exist. So we did something fun. But we basically just said, okay, let's forget the complexity of the wolf, the grain. Let's just say, hey, we got a boat, and we have 2 sheep, and we have a farmer. How many times can you take to get across the river? Super easy, 2 times. Each time you take the sheep. So we send that into AI. AI gets it wrong. Because it's expecting, in essence, so we'll walk through, it's expecting the riddle. It's expecting the higher level of difficulty because that's what it's been trained on. So sometimes the more simple the question, you can get an output that is just flat wrong, even though you would think this is much easier than the more complex model because it hasn't been trained that way. But then you can get it to get to the right answer, but it takes a lot of work. This is just one that we did. And I don't know if you've ever told AI, one of the things you can do to just get it to go back to a more simple way of, in a way, reset, is to tell it to take a breath. You guys anyone done that with, it's in the prompt? It's like, take a breath. And it will reset. But notice this prompt starts to get, it takes a lot of prompting to get AI to give you what is a super simple answer, because it has been trained on a complex problem. So you start thinking about this in terms of e-com. Here's where the prompt and the data that you input matters more than anything else. And this is sort of unquestionable. So at Pattern, we have 30 trillion data points. I don't know if that's the most or more than anybody else. I'm sure it's less than, say, an Amazon. But in the space, it is certainly, in the top 5. And that has enabled us to do some pretty phenomenal things. We're going to go over some technology we've been building for over a year now. I don't know if you were here for last year, but I was so happy, and it was so much fun. We got to a point where we could build what we called a fact sheet, which was essentially all the data for the prompt, which is the true gold in the entire, if you want to get the best output, that is where the true gold is. The problem was that fact sheet was 350 pages long. And we didn't know how to make that consumable for a brand. And even just talking about it felt like a task that was nearly impossible. And then here's the other thing is, in that 350 pages, and by the way, I don't know if you were here last week, but we'd grab a brand, we could generate all of that data in 7 minutes. So it was really fun. We could do it live. We had the capability to put the data together. The problem was some of it in the fact sheet was wrong, because it made inferences that were incorrect, just hallucinating in different cases. And so we had to figure out, how do I take 350 pages, and now it's actually more than that. Now it's in the realm of probably 1,000 pages. How do I take that and give it back to the brand so they can fix the things that are wrong? It's like epically difficult to do. For one, for them to even go through it, understand it, so you have to figure out. So we literally spent the last year with a team that is like mind-blowing, and I am just, so in a way I'm honored to just, be a part of that team. They're so good. And they're a big team. I mean, I bet we probably have right now, well, probably in the last 24 hours, well, maybe not in the last 24, but the last 7 days, we've probably had 70 engineers working on this, just to fine-tune for this release. And they're good. And then it takes not only engineers, but you have to have all of your UX and UI people that can help you say what matters to a brand, what are the key prompts that are going to be the output. Is it possible to take a 500-page document, pull out all the nuggets, serve it back up to the brand, let them edit the parts that are wrong, or maybe AI is getting it right, but they'd rather directionally take a slightly different strategy than they have in the past. So we need to edit the key points. And by the way, this is for one product. This is for the entire brand. So you have to basically take this 500-page document with all of this core data, which, by the way, as we've sort of proven, that is how you make a difference. That's how you get it right, is by winning on the data side. And it has been one of the funnest things, probably the funnest thing I've ever done in my career, is to try to say, okay, how do we take the key elements out of all this data dump that you would use for a prompt, give it back to a brand, have them tell us what they think directionally is off, let them edit it, and then save it back. And then, by the way, you need to put it in the PIM, Someone has to approve it, right? So, and then there are multiple levels. So there are a lot of things that are collected at a brand level. So, maybe you might think of your style guides or style sheets, whatever you want to, all of your color schemes, your tone of voice, what word choices you want to use. Like, do you call out things like safety first, family oriented? What are the ways you think about your brand and how do you want to communicate? That is at a brand level. That thing needs to roll down to all the products within this large data set. And then we need to be able to serve up both a brand editing capability, a product editing capability to someone who could never go through 500 pages of text. You need to pick out all the things that you think really matter. You need to be able to get them to edit it. So, I don't know, but I've told the team a couple of times, I think Pattern has done some epic things on the tech side. We have a lot of patents, and our ad tech is sort of mind-blowing, and I am in love with that, everyone knows. But this, I think, is more epic. I think the impact of this will be broader, and I'll give you an example. If you can say you can get your content better than your digital shelf, so your competitive set. We ran a couple of tests, give you a couple of results. If your content is slightly better or better than the rest of your competitive set, you would think about the e-commerce formula, traffic times conversion times price, that model, that it would be linear, right? If you can go from 20% to 22. Amazon gives you an outsized amount of traffic because they don't, if you include in your image stack something about, say, one of our archetypes is a social connection. So you're selling something, you all of a sudden include someone on a date or, some social connection. Now, maybe it's starts falling into the algorithm for Amazon of date ideas, something else, right? So you start converting, Amazon starts giving you an opportunity on a broader set of keywords. We have seen, this is no joke, the traffic for brands that can beat their digital shelf go up by, as much as 75 times, 75 traffic, and as little as about 8. So the impact of getting your content right, I love the ad tech. The only thing is, you have to pay for ads no matter what. This is free. And the impact is huge. So we'll walk through and give you some ideas. And by the way, this just gives you a little bit on the flow. We have internally, we built a machine that we call the brain, which is, because there are so many different technologies out there that you need to connect to make all this possible. You can't just use OpenAI, you can't just use Midjourney. We're connected to over 35, and we use what we call internally as the brain. And we've sent 3.8 million messages back and forth to the brain internally for us. That's essentially our mechanism to connect to all, and if someone builds some new piece of technology, we'd connect that up to the brain, and internally it feeds all of our systems. So if somebody comes up with a new model that we think is fantastic, we'll chase that down. All we have to do is connect it to the brain, so you're automatically connected. And then, of course, you iterate. So the validation process, this is where the magic happens, because you don't know when you get started where all the money's sitting. You have to keep trying it. But AI gets very good, and machine learning in general gets very good at producing that output, which is called a label. All right. Okay, so this is the other thing. This is the worst part about it all. All this works pretty good. Then you're left with a piece of content that you have to actually get somewhere. This is where everyone falls over, because everyone's using like Salsify, which we use forever, right? So you use Salsify. Is there any Salsify people here? That's good. Because I hate this part of it, because there is no cool technology, there is no AI, there is no machine learning in this shit. It's like, I just need to get this thing up on Amazon, Walmart, and maybe my website and everywhere else. So once you get to this point, and then I got to save it somewhere, and then, when I first started this, I didn't realize how many approval levels everyone would have. I thought if we said, hey, here's a piece of content that is for sure going to make your traffic go up by 8 times, people would be like, great. It's not how it works. Because then someone on the creative team or somewhere, and it's not just creative teams, it's legal teams, everybody is like, hey, I need to check that thing. So you're like weeks before you can just get the damn thing up on say an Amazon. And then if you use a Salsify, it's supposed to do syndication. So you push the button, and 17% of the time, because Amazon is a marketplace, it fails. So even if you have your content, and if you have 1,000 SKUs, say, and it fails 17% of the time, you now have 170 tickets you have to file with Amazon, every single one. And some of those threads, you can't believe them, they're like 30 messages back and forth. You're like, hey, by the way, I own the brand. So could you just let me put up what I want? And Amazon's like, I'm not sure, can you send in a verification, whatever. And I didn't sort of believe this when we first got going, how hard it was to just take the content and get it up on one thing, Amazon US, let alone if you're trying to deal with Europe and now you have 7 Amazons and then all the different marketplaces. I do sort of pity, Salsify souls because it is a hard problem. And then Amazon so even if their technology is perfect, Amazon will not accept the change. Now here's my big pick on Salsify though, is you can do a concept called match. And you could say, here's what's in my PIM. This is what I want up. Just tell me if you did it. That concept we have built because they didn't do, I don't care about building this, but we just built it because we can't make AI, we can't make this whole machine work unless we can get the content into place where it actually matters. So we have built now Match, where we essentially say, hey, is what's in my PIM actually up there? By the way, Salsify could build this technology. It's not that hard. You could even match the images. We did it. And we didn't spend forever doing it, and Salsify has teams of like thousands of people. My theory is the reason they don't tell us is because the answer is like 57% match. So this thing is supposed to syndicate, but at the end of the day, everyone goes out there and they look at it on the platforms and like, hey, this is actually not working like it's supposed to. Now I think they're starting to come up with a model where you can pay extra to get some, capability around that. So this wiring thing, which no one really wants to build. So all the people building AI, they don't care about our problems. They're building all these cool models, and they are massively impactful, and we could 8 to 75 times our overall traffic by using them, but we have to actually wire the whole thing together on the e-com side. Because all those guys who are very smart, they're like, I don't give a shit about that problem. So that's what Pattern is now taking, because we have to do this every day for hundreds of thousands of SKUs. So we are building the wiring to make all of this connect and to just give you visibility on what's working. Now, it is very difficult. We have added in some pieces where if it fails, then what? So now a human has to go and put in a ticket to Amazon? Yeah. And there's no other way around it. And if you submit it with a bot, Amazon blocks you. So there is no way around this. So we built a service, we just call it White Glove, which essentially is anytime the match didn't work, it sends it to a group of people in India, Serbia, that work at a price point that none of us are willing to work. And they will do all of that work at a price point that is like 1/10 of what we would do it here. But we at least get it to work. So for a brand, you can push the easy button. But behind the scenes, it's still the same problems we have before. And I think some of the reasons, Pattern is lucky in that we already screwed up our business model and we didn't do SaaS. So from an investor perspective, everyone always asks me, like, why do you guys buy inventory and all that? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe if I would have known about all this, I wouldn't have in the first place. But now we buy $2 billion worth of inventory, so that ship has sailed. And so now we don't care. I think a lot of the reasons why, like some of these companies won't do a lot of that behind the scenes, white glove, just make it actually work for the brand, is because then guess what? It's not SaaS anymore. It's like services, so now your multiple goes down. And we've had a lot of conversations on that, and I'm finally just like, I don't care. I don't know how much Pattern is going to be worth at the end of the day. I'm just trying to solve the problem. So, hope there's no investors here. But it's a great solution for everyone else except for our overall valuation. All right, so then, we sort of talked about this. This is, what we're calling this is the content brief, which is essentially that 600 pages, 500 pages, 350, whatever you call it, boiled down into what we call the content brief, so that a creative person could take that. They can, if they don't want to use AI to generate a single image or do anything, they can just download it. But all of the AI, all of the data is there for you to consume. And I'm pretty excited to show you this. And it is called PXM. Guess what? That's not that original, because I guess that's what everyone calls theirs. But we're also calling ours that. But I think that of the tech stack that Pattern has, and by the way, this, if you don't work with Pattern, this you can buy. This will be just available as a SaaS offering. I think it is very game-changing. The ad tech, on the other hand, is just for partners that we have. But this could be very interesting for everybody. And if you're an existing partner, by the way, what we're trying to do is, I don't know if I should exactly say this, we're trying to make it free for all existing partners. There's only one problem. Jason Wells, my CTO, is like, Dave, the computational cost of this is a lot. I'm like, how much is a lot? He's like, I'm not totally sure yet. It's like, so maybe you shouldn't tell people it's free. But I have a tendency to do this anyway. So unless it's crazy when we're done with this, then it will be free to all existing partners. But it is quite expensive to put this much data together. Okay, ready on the demo? Okay, I got Jake back here. Okay, so now we're in PXM. Jake's driving. Here is this top section is the brand brief. And you could go in, you could edit this. There's a lot of detail here. And I'm not going to cover a ton on the brand brief. We're using Pura. Pura allowed us to do this as our example. Okay, so here is just, their top competitive brands. So we'll go through. The point of this, remember, is if you're a creative person and you're trying to build content for this SKU, this one right here, what should I do? What data do you have? How are people finding my product? And I'll give you one little bit of context again. On Amazon, for example, what do you get? How many images? You get? I think it's 8. Right? Okay. As soon as everyone was saying lots of different numbers, I was like, I thought for sure it was 8, but I'm sure everyone knows what they're doing here. So I guess it depends on the category, but around 8. The thing about the image stack is you get one of them. So if someone finds your product from this search family, we'll go through search families, but if someone finds your product this way or that way or whatever, you only get that one set. if it was dynamic, that'd be great. You could have lots, depending on how people find the product, you could build a model that would convert somebody for Christmas gifts, for example, or college gifts if your kid went to college. But you get one set of images, so a creative person needs the data to know all the ways that people find my stuff. How should I build the content to be most optimal? So this is pretty cool. This is Pura. You can see this product. I think this is, one design rev back. I think this is the 3. They have the 4 now. They're one of our partners. So we do attribute extraction via AI, which will essentially take out all of the key product attributes that this product has and all the competitors. And it will start saying, okay, which ones are differentiated? So where are, for this product, less than 20% of my digital shelf, my competitors, talk about this attribute. Those are my key ones. So natural ingredients, interesting, people don't talk about that. Smart home compatible is a differentiated piece for this product as compared to the competitive set. And so you can start going through this and you start saying, okay, interesting. And then there's the number, you can see the percent of products have it, and then you can see the percent of sales. That is for the digital shelf. Keep going. Then we dive into themes. So we extract all the reviews and we start comparing it to their competitors or the digital shelf. So for example, in this case, the diffuse mechanism, people like it quite a bit. So this is positive sentiment on the left. So when people talk positively about a thing, they talk about the mechanism, almost double the category average. So if you're a creative person, you might say, people really like this about our product. Maybe we should emphasize this. There's going to be a lot of work, honestly, from strategy and creative people still. I was talking to Mel this morning, and she's like, so, is this going to make it so creative people, you don't need creative people? And I'm like, I thought it might in the beginning. I actually don't anymore. Because look at all of the strategy here. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made. AI can make them, but there's too many hallucinations. It's hard. What we're doing for you here is just serving up the data so you go ahead and pick. Now, interesting, like if you look at the connectivity, you would think, damn, this is bad. But most of the products in the category don't actually have connectivity. So, this is where, you start looking at it overall. Again, this is just information. We can take this information, I'll show you later. We can use all of this and just generate the content for you. Use AI, this becomes the prompt, massive prompt. Or you can download it. You can hand it to your creative person, and they can go build the content with more data than they ever had. Creative people, if they didn't have to build all of this, imagine how much faster they could go on just building the content. Let's keep going. So this helps you on the product attribute side. So this is back to the attribute extraction and the category. So here are things that people talk about in the category. If you don't claim the attribute, the size of the circle is revenue. If no one claim, if, for example, Pura doesn't claim, lighting element, which they don't, because you can see there the category, the claimed attributes are in green. So Pura doesn't claim that they have a lighting element, but they do. They have a lighting element. So once they claim that, the revenue for Pura will then pop up in that box. So that bubble will probably get bigger. But right now, they aren't claiming it. So the people who are claiming it, it's a small number. So you might look at the revenue number, you're like, oh, lighting element doesn't really matter. But it could also be because no one's claiming it. If you look at like missed feature, this is search volume, right? So the horizontal axis here is search volume. Missed feature is heavily searched. And I think Pura has that, right? They're saying yes. Pura has this. The search volume is enormous. Without question, creative person should say, we need to talk about this. Because the search volume is really big, and the revenue is actually decent. You can see by the size of the shape there. So this is just one of those things, many, many things that go into the overall decisions. Keep going. Then we go to personas, demographics. Let's just look at all the personas there, Jake. So in one shot. This is where Pura is pretty interesting. Their personas, when you reverse engineer them, they're very tech-centric. They aren't as much smell-centric as I thought that they might be when you start putting it together. Because I thought that's why anyone would buy it. But you start looking at, modern home enthusiast, even like a gift guru, which is a very interesting persona. You're like, okay, so gifting, I think, was mentioned in the reviews from an AI extraction standpoint, 150 times they talked about the word gift. So it becomes one of the personas. This is a heavily gifted product, and it should be something probably that is doubled down on. And then we did overlaps. So the values or the things that these personas value from an AI standpoint. Now, is this going to be perfect? No. But it's going to be a pretty damn good start. But AI believes that the overlaps across all of these are premium quality, convenience and efficiency, and smart home. So when you're building your content, those are the things that are resonating across all your personas. So maybe something, to think about as a creative person. Keep going. And by the way, this is a lot to think about if you're a creative person. So they might fold and just say, let's just click the button. See that generate content down there? They might just be like, I'm just going to push the button. But I'm not sure if they will. They might still want to build it all. And you can't, if you decide to do that, that's fine. You just click the other button, download, and you can take all of this data, puts it in a nice PDF for you, and you can go, and then you can go to work at it. This one isn't as interesting with Pura, but this will be very interesting for other things. It has frequently purchased with. Keep going. All right, so then, we start breaking down consumer demographics. And if anyone wants to do a deep dive on how we're actually getting all this data, you're more than welcome to. It is a blast. It will take you like 4 hours to get a feel for it. But if anyone's like, hey, how would you go about getting that? We can walk you through that. Okay, keep going. This one's really fascinating. We built the concept of search families. Because here's the problem we had. Go down and show the family, Jake. We'll just scroll down so you can see the next. Yeah, there we go. I started saying to brands, I'm like, hey, let me just tell you how people are finding the product. Problem is, it's like 40,000 different ways. And keyword phrases, you're like, hey, most people are finding your product with this. And then second is this, and third is this, and 4,000th is this. And pretty soon, it's why those documents got to be just a joke. And this was one of the key innovations, I believe, is we came up with the concept of search families or groupings. So you can see for the grouping, home and room sent solutions. We grouped all of the search volume, and you can see the keywords. And if you want to drop out, add a button on the far right, you can go and look at what all of the search terms are in this. And you can see how you're performing. You can see your overall search volume. You can see your search orders. You can see, your competitor, set, clicks, conversion. All of the data, roll back a little bit, Jake. This is extremely valuable to break it down by family. Because then you can say, now this is a really interesting piece for the category. Notice some of this stuff is so complex. I hope I'm, being clear. The 63% of the digital shelf, their dollars are coming from home and room sent. So your whole digital shelf, 63% of the orders that people are making are coming through home and room sent All of those keywords, diffuser, blah, blah, blah. Only 4% of the digital shelf is coming through on the smart home and technological diffusers. So you would think that's sort of a small number, who cares about it? But notice Pura is crushing that. So people, if you start looking at the details around what people are searching for Pura, I mean, if you're looking at this, you start saying to yourself, okay, wow, if I'm Pura, you'd ought to have the strategic conversation to say, we're only getting 5% from this bucket, and everyone else is getting all of it from there. Should we move, or should we not move? Maybe we just stay there. You know, it's just great data to try to help with hone strategy. All right, let's keep going. Okay, might be my favorite, is the archetypes concept. I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but we have defined 64 different archetypes. And I'll give you an example of these if you look here. Okay, like social connection enhancement is a good one, possibly. I mean, you can see, well, we'll start with package presentation because they actually have that. So package presentation means, do they have an image, and we extract this using AI, do they have an image where the product is presented in its packaging? Fairly simple concept, but notice the conversion rate across the bottom is pretty high. So if you present your product in the packaging, and we've just, we spent a lot of time with a lot of creatives trying to come up with how do you bucket the image types. So package presentation is one of them. It converts pretty good, and Pura has it. And notice that, number of products on the digital shelf that has it is also very high. So most people do this, and so does Pura. What happens in many cases is they just go look at the other guy's listing and like, oh, that's cool. Maybe we should do that. But they don't know, they don't have the data behind it to say, hey, is this going to actually work? So like the next one they don't have that a lot of the other company, brands have in the category is zoom in, detail focus. So are you doing a zoom in, on some part of the product? In their case, no. And it's pretty cool that AI can actually go and extract what all of these archetypes are. Well then, look at like social connection enhancement. Hardly any brands do this, which is essentially having in an image stack a social connection. People have a lifestyle, it's like someone jogging or whatever. But one thing that AI is telling us is if you have two people, maybe it's like a husband-wife, maybe it's someone on holding their baby, whatever, that social connection enhancement image archetype, if this makes sense, it's hard to get all of this across in a presentation, converts really well. Not only in this category, but it converts pretty well across the board. So it's something, if you're a creative person, to think about. Right now, Pure is not doing it because it's it's not on the listing. And then you can see, the furthest over there, conversion rate is, highlight that one, Jake. What was it? Ingredient showcase. So actually having an ingredient is the highest conversion. So an ingredient showcase, supply chain, where it's come from, so forth. Probably because, people are, smelling it and it's, that important to them. Okay, let's keep going. Looks like I'm nearing the end of my time. Wow, that went really fast. Okay, okay, let's keep going. And then at the bottom, it just has, here are some overall, what we would recommend based on all the data that you would actually do. So highlight smell. In the listing title, you should highlight smell to emphasize a differentiating attribute. Also include oil/scent ingredients. On the image stack, do this. On the bullet points, do this. On bullet points, make sure you highlight Wi-Fi mobility to stand out in the market, blah, blah, blah. So this is amazing overall work. I am blown away by the team and some of the, well, it's out. I was talking to the team and I think most of them are living on like 3 hours of sleep for the last 2 weeks probably. some of them, their eyes are like, they gone all red. But I'm just so grateful to be working with them. Let's switch, let's go to the download, Jake. We'll just show you the PDF inside it, you know. So you can just download this, you get all the content, you hand it to your creative person, they can do their thing. Keep going. Okay, this is very cool. I'll go really fast. This is, you know, when you push the button, generate all the images. It will also generate text. Show that in a minute if I go fast. You can also train this and say, hey, I like these images. Click the next button, Jake. You can have your team overall go out and say, like it, don't like it. Or we're just leaving it pretty open to say, if one person wants to vote it 7 times, they can. So you guys can handle that however you want. But sometimes people are like, I really like this, and I sort of like this. So the way you do that, 7 upvotes, you know, versus 3, whatever you want to do. And as a team, you can go out there, maybe you say there's 10, you know, maybe we'll get some product feedback on the people don't like that part. I don't know. But this will allow your team to go out and say, okay, I like this. Then you can use this and say directionally, AI, take me a little bit further on this direction. Keep going. So once people cast their votes, and I think in this case, well, I forgot what they highlighted. But I think one of them was social connection. Oh yeah, safety. But anyway, so let's keep going. So then it would generate your content again. So you can sit and play with this and say, okay, use all the data, use the prompts, create my content, and then let my team vote on the direction they feel like is the best strategy for the company. This is already AI derived anyway. And then you can create some more. Keep going. And then, of course, all of the text will be generated as well. Let's just whip through these in all the different languages. Wow. We did a little Klingon. Okay, keep going. I talked a little bit about this, but this just demonstrates the power of that, 8 to 74 times. Keep going. Okay, we talked a little bit about this, but this is what we're releasing. I say at the first part of Q3, and Jason says the middle, and sort of the end. Is that fair, Jason? But so for just public consumption, but we are looking for people who would like to beta. So where's our sales group here that's, maybe if you guys stand up real fast, so raise your hands. Jesse over here, Tyler. So go talk to them if this seems interesting. And all right, let's keep going. All right, everyone, I am so stoked about this. It's one of the, more proud moments I've ever had at Pattern is just being able to generate this and demystify, make it, easier for people to consume. And I hope you guys enjoy it, and thanks for coming to the presentation.